You're in the studio. Courtney, what is, I guess, introduce yourself. Tell us your role, because it's kind of cool. You work in a little piece of Bitterroot history here.
I feel really grateful for the role that I have now. I am the new executive director for the Daly Mansion. I've had this role since September, so pretty new. But I was the events coordinator there for 4 years. And before that, I was a volunteer in the archives and a tour guide. So I've been involved with the mansion for about 10 years total.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a long time.
It is. It has a very, very special place in my heart.
That's neat. Yeah, I remember going there as a kid. And I actually went there went inside the mansion for the first time it was during the Celtic Games last year.
Yeah.
And I had never been to the third floor before because it had always been closed.
Really?
When I was growing up here. Yeah. And so it's neat to see that the whole thing is back together, and it's really a cool...
Yeah, there's been a lot of love and time and effort put into not only preserving the historic mansion, but also maintaining and making it available and accessible to the public ever since it first opened to the public in 1986. And then during that time, up until about 2003, 2005, only the first floor was open. But it was the 2003 to 2005 era where they were able to raise enough funds to restore the rest of the mansion so people could tour through the entirety of it.
That's pretty cool. Well, for the people that don't know, why don't you tell us what exactly the Daly Mansion is?
Oh, okay. Well, the Daly Mansion is the summer home of the man that founded both Anaconda and Hamilton. He purchased the property in the late 1800s. The original house on the grounds was built by the Chaffin family in 1876. And once the Daly family procured it, it went through three different remodels. And the one that you see now that has really stood the test of time is the Georgian Revival and final remodel. Marcus Daly was a copper king. He was an immigrant from Ireland who made his way out west, and 100% self-made person in American history. I like to say that he is like the epitome of the American dream. Started with, I think, a nickel.
Right, yeah.
And then had the right knowledge, met the right people, and was in the right spot at the right time. But what's really special, I mean, there's so many things special about the Daly Mansion. So Marcus Daly had passed away before the Georgian Revival remodel was started or completed. He passed away in 1900. But the Georgian Revival house that you see now was completed in 1910. So in reality, it's Mrs. Daly's home, his wife's home.
Right.
And his wife really had a different kind of legacy of philanthropy and giving back to the community. And that's the type of legacy that we really like to lean into now that it's a museum, giving back to the community, inviting the community to come and be a part of a really special place. It's pretty rare in Montana that you get to go through a historical building that's in as good a shape as the Daly Mansion. It's
pretty incredible. Yeah. I mean, we have a lot of buildings out here from that era, but they're all falling apart. There's, except for, like in towns, you go to Butte or something like that, you get to see some of these older buildings, but like an actual residence that is still together and pretty well maintained. I mean, it's pretty incredible, and just amazing the things we get to do out there too in this valley. There's all sorts of events that happen out there throughout the year, which is awesome.
Yeah, a ton of events. That's one of my favorite parts about being involved with the mansion is bringing people on the grounds. The grounds are 46 acres. But when we have things like the Brew Fest, the Bitterroot Performing Arts Summer Concert, and the Celtic Festival, somehow when people come out there, it makes them feel even bigger. but even just more amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun out there, and the history of the place is pretty incredible. Yeah, you're right about that. Where he's, Marcus Daly's basically like one of the first. Well, I don't know about one of the first, but definitely a classic that classic American story of he started with nothing and they basically became one of the richest men in the country.
Yep.
Quite literally one of the richest men in the country. It's incredible, like the amount of wealth that was attained from copper.
Yeah.
In the late 1800s.
Well,
sorry, and to go further into it with the how connected this valley is to that industry, because the whole reason that we have the foundation of this town, Hamilton, was for the lumber. It would be taken over to Anaconda, and if you ever have a chance to go, I mean, that's one of the favorite things about living here is you get to take Scout Go Pass also. So that connection where you get to go from here, you can go to the Daly Mansion, and then you drive all the way over to Anaconda where the smelter is, through the mountains, and
take a tour of Montana history.
Oh, yeah.
And then afterwards zip over to Helena to see the Capitol. The Montana Capitol building was one of the first with electricity, and that's because of the copper kings like Marcus Daly that discovered and figured out that copper was viable for electrical.
Was that Marcus Daly though, or was that his competitor that got got Helena, right? Because I think Marcus Daly wanted the capital to be somewhere else. I can't remember where exactly. I think it was Anaconda, wasn't it?
Yeah, he wanted the capital to be Anaconda. I was just saying electricity.
Okay.
Electricity.
I could hear Marcus Daly screaming. Like, no.
But it's kind of cool because you think of what Montana was back then. I mean, it wasn't as like big cities like Billings and Great Falls and Missoula like we know today.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a really big deal that a rural state had such impressive technology.
That's true. Yeah. So hey, anybody out there who, because we make these jokes all the time of like, oh, you live in Montana, you guys have electricity up there, you still ride horses. Yes, we still ride horses, but we probably had electricity before all y'all down in California. So suck it.
Fact.
Cold hard facts. No, that's pretty interesting. I actually didn't know that the Montana Capitol building was one of the first buildings with electricity here. Mm-hmm. It was pretty incredible. It was a beautiful building too. There's some really fun history out here. The whole Marcus Daly thing is just fascinating. Growing up here, he's talked about more, I think, than Lewis and Clark even. Being on the west, I mean, and they're talked a lot about out here as well. They came through this valley and
Lewis and Clark
and all of that, but Marcus Daly really literally changed the landscape out here. Mm-hmm. You look at those mountains, and 100 years ago they probably would have been barren. Yeah. And so that's kind of one thing we lose sight of is like, I don't know where I was going with that. It's too early. I still haven't finished my coffee yet.
Me either.
I was going somewhere and I lost my train of thought. So let's talk about Tammany Castle, because that is also another piece of Marcus Daly history. Yep. What is going on with that? Do you know anymore?
I do. Well, the Tammany Castle is a private residence now. So people can't go into it or step onto the property, but you can see it. It's right behind the Canyons gym.
Yes.
But a little bit of the story about the Tammany Castle was Marcus Daly also really, really loved racehorses. Like really loved. Really, that's actually I like to call it a legend. I think it's written down, but one of the reasons why Marcus Daly chose the Bitterroot Valley is because he thought that the mountain air would breed better and stronger racehorses. And the story of Tammany was he was one of Marcus Daly's favorite racehorses. They put him in a race with this other really prolific racehorse back then called Lamplighter, and Marcus Daly said, if Tammany wins this race, I will build him a castle. Well, Tammany won, And Marcus Daly built essentially a castle for a horse with velvet-lined stalls, and it was big enough that it was able to be converted into a house. Something that I really appreciate about the time that we live in now is that people are seeming to really appreciate preserving the historical aesthetic and integrity of some of these old buildings, even when they have to do some of the remodels. So the exterior of Tammany Castle is still very historically accurate. It's just the interior that has been changed.
Right.
I don't know the full story of who bought it and when and who restored it, but I do know that now it is owned by the Bessoniers, who are part of the Daly family.
I didn't realize that. Interesting. I guess that makes sense.
They are the grandchildren of the Countess Margaret Bessonier, who was the daughter of Hattie, Marcus and Margaret's youngest daughter.
Yes. And they also own the Bitterroot Stock Farm.
Yep.
Again, not to be confused with the Stock Farm Club. I had Peter on here a couple times to talk about the project that they're doing. And so there's that connection right there, because the Daly Mansion is kind of in the middle of their ranch. But back to Tammany Castle, for those of you in the Bitterroot Valley that don't know where it is, and those of you coming to visit that don't really know, if you drive up, so you're coming on Highway 93 and you take a right turn if you're heading north up Marcus Street, which turns into East Side Highway. Once you come around the corner at the top of the hill, there is a road called Tammany Lane, and if you turn down that, you'll be able to see it. It's a large building with these two spire. What are those called? Those classic things you see on the old farmhouses that are like spires, but they're not spires, and they always have a wind vane on them. Anyway, it has two of those things on it, and you'll see it. It's kind of set back a little ways from the road, but that's you'll be able to see the tops of it at least.
Yeah, so you can see the building, but don't trespass.
Yeah, don't go. No, it's private property, like we said.
But the mansion is not private. Well, it is private property, but it is open to the public.
Yes, it is privately held, publicly something. That is a cool place to go if you're in the area as well. That one's just right down the road on East Side Highway as well. Hard to miss because there's a big sign out front that says Daly Mansion. It's got a gate, a long driveway. You're like typical what you'd expect of, late 19th century, early 20th century kind of living.
Right. May I speak a little bit more about the mansion?
Oh, please do.
Okay. Well, we will be open for our summer schedule tours starting on Tuesday, June 10th. That means that we'll be open 6 days a week for people to just walk in and sign up to take a tour. You don't have to make a reservation from June through September. The grounds will be open 7 days a week starting that day as well. People are welcome to come and have a picnic, use the grounds as a place to get some miles in and steps in, jog, walk, breathe the fresh air. And the only rule that we have is we don't allow dogs because we only have one groundskeeper. And so it's hard to maintain if people don't pick up after the dogs.
No.
But the grounds are always free to the public to use and enjoy.
Awesome.
We have some really great summer events coming up as well. Bitterroot Brew Fest, of course, is July 26th. Then if you like music, well, the Brew Fest has music as well, but there's also the Bitterroot Performing Arts Council the first weekend of August. And then the Celtic Festival the third weekend of August. And then we have our own very own Daly Mansion car show.
Really? I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yep.
Also,
Yeah.
the Celtic games, pretty sweet, if you ever get a chance to go to those.
I'm sorry, I could talk about the mansion.
Oh, please go on. Go on.
I'm trying to figure out the main points that I think people might be impressed by. Out of all of the historical mansions that have been turned into museums throughout the state of Montana, the mansion is one that has the most remaining historical grounds. So as soon as you drive down that lane, you literally are like driving in and stepping back in time to grounds that have been, I mean, of course, we've had to maintain it and things, but you're going into 100-year-old grounds. And most of the other historical mansions in the state the grounds have been spliced up and built around with houses and businesses and things like that. And then we are also very fortunate to have about, I want to say 70 to 80% of the original furnishings from the Daly family when they lived there.
Wow, that's incredible.
And when they first opened the doors, and they did have a big auction of a lot of the original furnishings, but the town of Hamilton really rallied, and they came to the auction and they bid on them and they gave them right back for the most part.
Nice.
And we get items returned to us, I want to say like every couple years. And so you get to actually see the original furnishings and what the house, we set it up to make it look as close as we can to what it looked like when the Dalys owned it. And the reason why we know what it looks like is because they found these black and white photos that were taken right around or before Mrs. Daly passed away for insurance purposes. But what we use them for now is to give our guests a glimpse of what it really looked like.
Well, that's cool. Right on. That it is a pretty incredible experience when you turn down that road. Like every time you're just like, you really you hit the nail on the head there. Like you really do take a step back in time from the beginning. You go down that driveway, you go through those big iron gates, and you have the tree, like this long. It's like a half mile or something?
It's like a quarter mile.
A quarter mile?
Yeah.
Quarter mile long driveway that's just lined with trees and.
Yeah, beautiful old maple trees.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. And you pull up, and then the whole thing opens up, and you get to see the mansion in the background and the huge grounds out front. And honestly, the place, you walk around that place, it has one of the best views of the valley too, from the back area.
Yeah, I have to do another kind of shout out to the Bessoniers. The reason why we're still able to have that beautiful view without having even more development is because that field out on the west, their father started working on Francis. He really wanted to preserve that area to have the historical view, and they continued his work, and they were able to get that easement over it. So as long as the Daly Mansion is still open to the public and a source of history and education, no developments can be built on that back field. So they worked to preserve that historical view. And it's pretty awesome. We have some black and white photos from back then in our archives, and you can see it with the field and the mountains, and it's pretty incredible.
What was the most surprising thing that you learned about the mansion?
The most surprising thing. I don't know if it's the most surprising, but a fact that I really, really love that I always lean into is that even though the house that you see now looks drastically different from the very first L-shaped farmhouse that the Chaffin family built, they never completely tore it down and started from scratch. They always built up and around it. So the bones of that original L-shaped farmhouse are still within the walls of the Daly Mansion that you see now.
Are they? Would that be like the trophy room to the? No.
It would be the kitchen. The kitchen and the butler's pantry. And
that's on the north side, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And the servants' hall and staircase were a part of the original farmhouse, and we were doing a restoration project up on the third floor, and you learn something new every day that you're in the mansion. I've had some people say like, oh, well, I've already toured it. I'm like, well, you need to come back, because depending on who you talk to, you're going to learn something else. And when we were working on the restoration project up on the third floor, we were trying to get one of the bathrooms up on the third floor functioning again. And our architect was telling me that what they what they did was they actually kept the first floor basically the same design over each one of the remodels. And it was the second and third floors where they changed things around. And you can, even on the second and third floors, you'll walk through and you'll see things like windows that look into closets, or windows kind of towards the top of the ceiling in bathrooms that don't ventilate. And you're like, what are those from? Well, those are also remnants of either the Victorian or the Queen Anne. So there's little, you can't tour the actual original L-shaped farmhouse, Victorian or Queen Anne, but you kind of are. It's a fun thing. And also, like, there's one room that you can tour, and we call it Marcus Daly's office. And we get those questions a lot. Well, Marcus Daly passed away before this remodel was completed. And we said, well, that's true, but this was his office in one of the previous remodels.
Oh, okay.
And so they never changed it. And they just built up and around it. So you're in Marcus Daly's office from one of the previous remodels. It's kind of crazy, but I love that.
Yeah, that's neat. Yeah, it's cool that you guys are able to, that you're able to figure that out, though. At least they, like, this was this room, and then it got changed around. And
Yep.
Yeah, it's amazing that we're able to have insight into that. Well, the question that is on everybody's mind, especially mine, is the mansion haunted? I've heard this before.
Well, it depends on who you talk to. My most common answer to that is, I don't know, but if it is, they're friendly ghosts. I will say that there are a lot of ghost stories that volunteers and old or previous directors share and things. And in October, we just started this last year, October of 2024, we actually do candlelight tours now, where
Creepy.
people, we turn off all the lights, but we have the LED candles, and we have tour guides to take people around and share the ghost stories in each room. I do have a ghost story of my own, or maybe instead of saying ghost, a peculiarity story of my own.
Do tell.
We hosted a whiskey tasting in late March of this year. And after everybody left, I was the only one in the house. I went to go turn off all the lights and check and make sure nobody was around, and, make sure the house was locked up. We have motion detectors in various rooms, and one of the rooms is the trophy room, which is where we held the whiskey tasting. So all the lights are off. I go to type in my code to arm the house, and it says, error, motion detected in the trophy room. So I go back. There's not a fly. There's not a bat. There's nothing. Turn off all the lights again, do all my due diligence, go back in. It still says error, motion detected in the trophy room.
Creepy.
And I was like, well, I have to get out of here, because I opened the next day. I actually took a picture of the alarm box to show that I wasn't making that up. And the next day I go and I open at 8 o'clock in the morning, and the alarm box says, disarmed, ready to arm. So the motion that was detected was gone.
Interesting.
And,
okay.
I mean, I don't know. That's why I say it's probably not a ghost. It's a peculiarity. But the trophy room was an addition built on the mansion in 1914 for Marcus II's hunting trophies. And so they had a lot of energy in there where they would, smoke cigars, have whiskey, talk about hunting, kind of do those things. And so I like to joke that maybe if there are ghosts, they really enjoyed that people were enjoying whiskey.
They're just hanging out. Yeah,
again.
maybe, huh?
And so we did leave. There were some bottles of whiskey that were left in there. So I was like, well, maybe the ghosts were trying some.
Oh, hey, thanks. Oh, that's okay. Okay. The one that I heard, I don't remember too much about it, but the one that I remember from my childhood is the one about a painting. That was put somewhere, and it kept falling down, and then after a period of time, they figured out that from looking at pictures that the painting actually was hung originally somewhere else, and once they put it there, it stopped falling.
I have heard that story as well. And that painting is in the living room.
It's the Is it? No, it's not the gigantic
it's
one.
It's not the gigantic one that used to have a painting of their oldest daughter, but it's a painting of like a pope playing the piano.
Okay.
I know it's a very intricate piece, but that was one of the first stories that I was told when I started volunteering there. And you got it right, Ryan, where the story goes is when they first opened the house up to get it ready for being a museum, is they would hang it, and then they would come in and the picture would be down. But when they discovered those black and white photos that I had mentioned earlier, that's how they figured out where the painting originally was, and then they hung it up where it was shown in the photo, and the story goes that it never was taken down again.
Very strange. Mm-hmm. Very, very strange. Yeah, I always thought that's why the third floor wasn't open when I was a kid, too, because they were still trying to get the ghosts out of there or something.
No, it was just not safe to walk up there. But
because of ghosts?
Maybe. No, I don't know. Mostly because of rickety stairs, but...
All right, excuses. You're sworn to secrecy, I suppose. Yeah, I bet... Yeah, it's hard to tell, if any of those are really... true. Like, it's like same thing like the hotel in Bannock, right? Mm-hmm. How they think, I've heard stories about that one's haunted. There's a woman that you see on the second floor all the time or something. I mean,
you never know. It's kind of what you believe, and that's why I like to say if they're friendly. And I haven't experienced anything like scary or anything,
right?
But
there's like, hey, hang my picture in the right spot. I don't like it there,
Exactly. Let me drink some whiskey in peace. Something that I also like to mention to people when I give tours or if people talk to me about the mansion is it's a museum now, but it was a home.
Yeah.
It was a house. It was a home. And that's another reason why I love having events and tours where people get to come through and be in the mansion. It feels like, well, I hope this doesn't sound creepy, but it feels like the home comes alive when there's activity in it. It's just like,
yeah,
that's what it was built for, was to have people and guests and merriment. And so that's another lit's special thing that I love.
I'm sure it pleases the spirits. Yeah,
they get. Stop it.
Well, no, they get to. What's it? Margaret, right?
Mm-hmm.
Margaret Daly, like very community oriented, very philanthropic. Mm-hmm. She, her thing was leaving a legacy of that, and the ability for that property to continue to offer things to the community and open itself as a home, a generous home for people to come and enjoy events. Like, I think that would be very pleasing to her. So as long as we keep having events there and doing neat things like that, they will remain nice spirits and not try to do anything like you see in Paranormal Activity or whatnot.
Don't go there. Another thing I'd like to mention just about the history of the mansion, not necessarily this was in the interim between when Mrs. Daly passed away and when it was opened to the public. I just have to give another shout out to Hamilton and the type of people that live here. I'm not from Hamilton, I'm from Great Falls, Montana, but Hamilton is really impressive. So there are stories about especially people in like the 70s and 80s that would sneak into the mansion when it was boarded up. And I was talking to the architect who was a part of the big restoration project. And, what's really impressive is there was no graffiti, there's no vandalism, and nothing was really stolen or destroyed. People just snuck in, and there used to be a pool table up on the third floor in the billiard room, and I heard recently from one of our volunteers that someone told a story how they used to sneak in when they were in high school, bring a couple bottles of beer and go play pool But that's all they would do is I think that people still really appreciated and honored the house. And so I don't mind hearing the stories of sneaking in because nobody did anything to damage it or disrespect it. So shout out to Hamilton.
That's crazy. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's like the classic, right? Like, oh, this old abandoned haunted house, this mansion, this, we're going to go sneak into it and, like, do weird things.
Nobody did anything to hurt it, which is really cool.
Well, again, maybe something spiritually,
It sounds like you need to come on one of our candlelight tours, Ryan.
Yeah, I should, huh? Yeah, it sounds like fun.
Speaking of October, and one of the events that we haven't had it since 2019. You can guess why we haven't had it after that, 2020. But we are bringing back the Haunted Hayride this year.
Oh, cool.
And it's a well-loved event from previous years where we have little spooky vignettes on the grounds and people get to ride on a wagon and go through. It's like our version is like Haunted Grounds, and we're really excited to be bringing it back. So stay tuned for that one.
Yeah, excellent. Well, why don't you tell people how, like, obviously the place has a website. Mm-hmm. Do you have an event calendar? Do you guys have social media at all?
We do have social media. We are on Facebook and Instagram, and we have a really great website designed by Touchpoint Designs. And I will say, don't trust the hours listed on just Google. Go to our actual website.
Okay.
Because during the winter, we're closed, but you can call and make reservations for tours. So anyways, go to our website. It's dalymansion.org. We have information about tours, as well as if people want to book the grounds for weddings or graduation parties or anything like that. And we also have our events list on that website.
Perfect. All right. Well, thanks, Courtney.
Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate that you invited me to come and talk a little bit about the Daly Mansion. And if people have more questions, feel free to give us a call. I'd be happy to talk to you as well.
Yeah, go check it out and, see if you can find out any of your own ghost stories at the Daly Mansion. Spelled with no I, by the way, if you're searching for it on the web. It's Daly.
Daly.
Mansion.org. Yeah, thanks for being here, Courtney. And, looking forward to all the cool things that are going to happen over the summer there.
Awesome. Thank you, Ryan.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.